So it's Friday night, you just got paid, and you decide to go out with a couple of friends. You go out for a nice dinner in the city, and maybe you get a couple of drinks. And on Saturday and Sunday, you go out shopping, maybe you get a couple of clothes from the mall, and maybe you buy a couple pairs of shoes online. And on Sunday night, you take a look at everything that you spent on your credit cards, and you find out that you pretty much spent your entire paycheck. So the question is, what happened? So in this video, I'm going to talk about the 8 things to do with your paycheck so this way you're financially responsible every month. So what do you do with your paycheck? Well, let's talk about step 1, which is to find your essential baseline. So essentially for your essential baseline, you're finding out how much money you need to spend on just the essentials. This includes your mortgage, rent, cell phone bill, and even internet bill. For most people, it's best to spend up to 30% of your paycheck for your housing, up to 10% for food, and up to 10% for your bills. A lot of people don't really know how much money is actually leaving their bank accounts. A lot of times they'll do this thing called mental accounting where they think they spend this amount of money for maybe housing or food, but in reality they actually spend way more than that. For example, I had a friend a couple of years ago where I asked them, hey, how many subscription services do you think you have right now? He told me that he had around like 3 or 4, but when we actually checked his phone, he actually had 17 subscriptions. I'm not even joking about that. So how do we solve this? Well, it's important that we actually have a budget and we actually look at all the numbers right in front of us. Something that I personally do is I track everything on my budget sheet and I type out everything that I spent every single month. And with all the people that I worked with in the past, a lot of people realize how much they actually spend when they actually see a list right in front of them. If you want to use my budgeting sheets, I'll put a link down below and you can download it right now. Okay, so let's talk about step number 2. Step number 2 is to build an emergency fund. So why is building an emergency fund so important and why do I always talk about it? From this article from CNBC, you can see that 56% of Americans can't afford a $1,000 emergency expense. Things always happen in life and it's very important that we have a little bit of savings in our emergency fund, especially in a high yield savings account, just in case. I've had some flat tires before and I sometimes even have to take my dogs to the vet for an emergency visit. So how much money should you typically have in your emergency fund? If you're regularly employed, well, typically I recommend having 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund at all times. If you're self-employed or maybe you have your own business, it's typically good to have around 6 to 12 months of an emergency fund. Okay, so what's the next step? Step 3, you want to pay off high interest debt as soon as you can. Half of Americans have credit card debt and a lot of them don't have any plans of paying it off. The average debt in America is around $104,000. This is really scary because credit card interest rates right now are around like 15, 20, or sometimes even 25%. Let's say that someone has $5,000 of credit card debt in year 1 with a 20% interest. If this person doesn't pay it off, well, by year 2, they're going to have to pay an additional $1,000 on top of the $5,000. If they continue to not pay it off by year 3, they're going to have to pay an additional $2,200 on top of the initial $5,000. Now they don't owe $5,000 anymore. They now owe $7,200. So what are the methods to pay off debt? Well, it comes down to these 2 methods. First is the snowball method, and second is the avalanche method. With the snowball method, you're basically going to list out all your debt from least to greatest amount. And what you're going to do is you're going to pay off the ones with the least amount first while paying off the minimum balances for the rest. This is a good method for people who want to get small wins where they pay off all the small debts first. However, if you want to save more money on interest, the best method in my opinion is using the avalanche method. Essentially with the avalanche method, you're going to list out all of your debts with the highest interest rates first from greatest to least, and then you're going to pay off all the debts with the highest interest rates first while paying off the minimum balances for the other ones. This is the method where you actually save the most money. I go through all the steps in my money cheat sheet if you want to check it out. Okay, let's move on to step number 4. Step number 4, you're going to contribute money into your employer's sponsored retirement account and up to the employer match. Let's say you make $50,000 a year and your company is able to match you 5%. This means that you can contribute up to $2,500 into your 401k, and then your employer will match that and also contribute $2,500 of their own money. In the end, your 401k has $5,000. This is a great strategy because you can essentially just double your money right away. There's also some good tax benefits with investing in a 401k. So let's say that your taxable income is $50,000 and you were able to contribute $2,500. When you report to the IRS, you can now say that, hey, my taxable income is going to be $47,500. This means that instead of being taxed at $50,000, you'll be only taxed at $47,500. Okay, let's talk about step number 5. Step number 5, you want to open and invest in a Roth IRA. There are so many people out there becoming millionaires because of their Roth IRAs. So what does a Roth IRA stand for? An IRA is an individual retirement account. And there are three amazing advantages with investing in a Roth IRA. The first advantage is that you can withdraw your contributions at any time. The second advantage is that it's the easiest way to compound your wealth as long as you're consistent with depositing money into this account and investing it into maybe something like the S&P 500. And the third advantage is that this money that you grow all the way until 59 and a half, it's all going to be tax and penalty free. That's right. Once you grow your account to say $1 million, all that money is going to be tax and penalty free, meaning that Uncle Sam can't take any of that money. And of course, I love talking about Roth IRAs in my live stream. So if you ever want to come hang out with me and ask me your questions, I'll put a link down below so you guys can join. So the number one question that I get with Roth IRAs is, Steve, what do I invest in within this account? I basically like to invest in the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is basically the Standard & Poor's 500, or the top 500 companies in the United States. So when you buy some sort of low-cost index fund or an ETF that tracks the S&P 500, well, essentially you're investing in all the top 500 companies in the United States all at once. One of my favorite ETFs that tracks the S&P 500 is VOO. And if you're very consistent with maxing out your Roth IRA every year for the next 30 years and investing into something like the S&P 500, it's very easy for you to become a millionaire by then. So how do the taxes work for a Roth IRA? Again, we're going to say that your taxable income is $50,000 and you contribute $7,000 into a Roth IRA. Now here's the thing, this is not the same thing as a 401k because your taxable income is still going to be $50,000. This is because with a Roth IRA, you're contributing and investing your post-tax money. But let's see why it's so powerful to invest in a Roth IRA compared to just saving it into a regular savings account. Because let's say that you save $500 a month into a savings account for the next 30 years, you're going to have around $180,000. However, if you compare this to investing $500 a month into your Roth IRA for the next 30 years and buying S&P 500 funds, you'll have around $1 million by then. And the most powerful thing about this is that with a Roth IRA, that $1 million is all going to be tax-free at 59 and a half. If you already have a Roth IRA, let me know down below and which brokerage you chose for yourself. Okay, let's move on to step number 6. Step 6, you want to start investing in a taxable brokerage account. With a taxable brokerage account, there are 3 advantages. Advantage 1, there are no contribution limits. For a Roth IRA in 2024, you can only contribute up to $7,000 if you're under 50 and up to $8,000 if you're over 50 for the year. But with the taxable brokerage account, there are no contribution limits, meaning that you can contribute as much money as you want into this account. Advantage number 2, all your withdrawals are going to be penalty free. With a Roth IRA, oftentimes when you take out money early before 59 and a half years old, you might incur some sort of like 10% penalty fee. But this doesn't happen with a taxable brokerage account. Advantage number 3 is that this taxable brokerage account can be used as an income generating account. A lot of you guys know that I love selling covered calls and collecting dividends, and a lot of times I do this within my taxable brokerage account, and all that money is real money. I can actually take it out and use it. I have a lot of videos on how to sell covered calls and collect dividends in my channel, so feel free to check them out later on. So let's move over to step number 7. Step 7, you want to see what your opportunity cost is. Some of the things that I like to talk about on my channel is to outsource things that you don't like to do and to help you save time, because time is the greatest asset that you can never get back. Back when I was a teacher, I also tutored after school, and I was charging anywhere from $100 to $300. However, I didn't like to do my own gardening work, so I hired someone to mow my lawns for $30 an hour. So essentially, by hiring someone else to do this for me, I was saving $70 an hour. But here's the thing, it doesn't make sense for you to outsource everything in your life because you don't like to do it, because you're going to end up spending a lot of money. And the whole purpose of this video is to find strategies on how to get out of that paycheck to paycheck life. So before I outsource something to someone else, I typically like to ask myself these 3 questions. First, how much do I make per unit of time? So in my example, it was $100 per hour for tutoring. 2, is the cost of outsourcing a task lower than my rate? So in my example, it was $30 an hour for mowing my lawn. And third is, well, am I actually using that outsourced time to make more money? A lot of finance content creators out there will say things like, oh yeah, you shouldn't focus on saving money on a $5 coffee. So I have a couple of problems with this statement. First is, a lot of times when you make food at home or make your own coffee at home, it teaches you how to be frugal. So it's not really focusing on the money saving aspect, but really that habit developing aspect. The next is if you're not really doing anything else, like you're just watching TV or scrolling through your phone, then it does make sense to make your own coffee. On the other hand, if you have a side hustle and you're making $100, $200, $300 an hour, then yeah, it would make sense to buy coffee and even buy food. I have a lot of entrepreneurial friends who use Uber Eats pretty much every day because it actually helps them save more money. They don't have to spend a lot of time going to the grocery store, preparing the food, cleaning up afterwards. It actually makes sense for them to buy out. And again, everyone's lifestyles and earning rates are all different, so you want to see what best fits your life. Let's talk about the final step. Step 8, you want to automate everything. Something that I found in my journey to financial freedom was that the less decisions that I had in my life, the easier it was for me to focus on the things that actually matter. And sometimes I have a goldfish memory, and by automating things, it really helps me out because there's so many things that I have to remember every day. Typically, when a paycheck comes in, I'm going to deposit it into a checking account. From here on, you want to deposit some of that money into an emergency fund in your high yield savings account. You then want to put some of that money into paying off your high interest debt. And lastly, of course, you want to put some of that money into your investments like your 401k, company match, and your Roth IRA. If you guys found a lot of value in this video, I would totally appreciate it if you guys gave me a like and follow and let me know any of your questions down below. I also highly recommend that you watch this video right here where I talk about how to invest as a complete beginner. Stay amazing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye everyone.